Thriving Pets Through Nutrition, Episode 3, is about cancer. The rise in cancer in our dogs is alarming. Did you know that 45% of dogs over 10 will die of some form of cancer? And some of the breeds, it's as high as 65%. I feel like we don't know all the reasons our dogs are getting the different forms of cancer. I do believe we know how we can do our best to avoid contributing to cancer. Since we feed them every day, I like to believe that the diet is a good place to start today. So let's start with discussing kibble food. There's several toxic ingredients in a dry dog food that has been linked to cancer. We know aflatoxins, pesticides, food dyes, chemicals due to high heat processing. Carbohydrates feed cancer because it breaks down into sugar. Cancer feeds off sugar. Seed oils cause inflammation, and preservatives can damage organs like the liver, which causes cell mutations. It's so sad. Over 6 million dogs die of cancer each year. Now that we have studies being done, we need to follow the results and do better for our dogs who rely on us to feed them. We do know that half the cancers are coming from the diet, and that's something we can control. Just think if we were able to stop feeding the foods causing the cancers, we could have our dogs live longer and thriving while being here. They're only here such a short time. So looking at ingredients on the food you feed is just as important as why you feed your dog. For example, aflatoxins is the most common carcinogen found in commercial dog food. It's a species of fungus, but you won't see that listed in the ingredient panel. What you might see is corn, wheat, cereals, peanuts, rice, soybeans, and these ingredients have shown to be contaminated with aflatoxins. Therefore, your dog has been eating aflatoxins without the consumer knowing. These contaminations can be found in all sorts of kibble. Since we want to stop the body's cells from growing uncontrollably and spreading to other parts of the body, we will need to change the way we look at food for us and for them. Since we aren't taught nutrition by our doctors or our veterinarians, we need to do the research ourselves most of the time. There are many benefits from feeding the food they were built to eat. It's all part of an ecosystem. And it's important so we can prevent diseases like cancer. Here's an interview I did with my friend Brian. We were talking about Sierra, his dog who recently passed from cancer. We also play with his new puppy, Meadow. I hope this video helps bring awareness to the thought of cancer and how we can all get better at prevention. If you would like help with food, have any questions, or would like to reach out, please place a comment below, and I will be very happy to help you. Here's my interview with Brian. I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Brian.
How's it going?
We're here to talk about Sierra.
Yep. Gosh, we had so much fun. She was a rescue dog. I got her from Page, Arizona, and she had been on the reservation for a year before I got her. Her health was very compromised. She was real skinny and kind of real listless. I could tell that like whatever she had been through had kind of taken a lot out of her. But I got her, and I adopted her on December 28th, 2014. Yeah, December 28th, 2014. And at that time, she was about a year. And I noticed that like the first couple of days, she was real timid, and she would just kind of sit in the corner and, wasn't very, she was just kind of trying to figure me out.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this really great place outside of Denver called Mount Falcon. And it has all these different hiking trails on it. And it was snowing, of course.
Of course.
It's Colorado in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And I took her out, and I remember the first time I took her leash off, and she kind of like took one step and looked up at me, and I was like, "Go ahead," and she just took off, and her personality from that point on just exploded.
With the little prance.
Yeah, oh yeah,
that she does?
and it's so funny too when she would run. I wonder if I've got video of this. I bet I do. But when she would run away from you, she'd want to go in all these different spots. So her little butt would be going all over the place, but her paws would be going in one direction. But everybody's like, "Look at her butt! It just wiggles all around when she's running." And she totally came out of her shell, and that's what really encouraged me to sell all my stuff and hit the road. And we hit the road on July 5th, 2015. And I mean, I cannot tell you how much fun we had, being out there. She just came alive, and she was so excited to always go hike every day that it encouraged me to go out and make sure that I was hiking every day. Because there were days I woke up, I'm like, I don't feel like going hiking, but she'd want to go. And so that was our life,
And she was about a year old at that point?
Yep, she was about a year old.
Okay.
Well, and so by the time we hit the road, about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah. And her health just went through the roof. I mean, we were out every day on trails in Colorado, and I had adopted a bunch of trails from the Forest Service to pick up trash and stuff like that and help, maintain them. And of course, they were all trails that led to really good fishing spots. But we just had so much fun, and the bond that we developed living in such a small space for all those years, I mean, it was amazing. And that was my first dog that I had myself, because growing up in Kansas, our family had dogs. We had like family dogs, but it was more like my mom's dog or my parents' dog. And so I didn't realize just how much a dog or any animal could impact your life, and it was amazing. I mean, it's the best experience. But unfortunately, I didn't know much about the nutrition and how that could really negatively impact an animal's life. And I had her on kibble.
So when you first got her, how did you know what to feed her? Or was it something that they had her on already? And
No, they didn't really give me much guidance, at the rescue center. Because what it was is, even though she was from Page, there was a rescue center in Lakewood, Colorado that had like a partnership with them. And so what they would do is, if they were overflowing up here, they would send the res dogs to Lakewood, and it was a no-kill shelter, which was great. And so all the dogs, ended up getting adopted and stuff like that. So they would send the overflow ones to Colorado. And I remember when I went to to visit her, and the gal told me, she goes, "Oh, there's another gal on the way right now that wants her." And I thought, okay, well, let me just take her out for a walk and kind of see how things go. And she had walked right up to me when I first met Sierra. She walked right up to me, but was real timid. But she had these the softest eyes, and I had my hand out like this, and she put her cheek up against my hand and just barely licked my hand and was just looking at me. And I was just like, I'm already gonna take her.
okay, she's mine.
Yeah. And then I took her outside, and we went on a walk, and she did a little bit of a prance, like one of them, and then she looked up to make sure everything was cool, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's all good. And then got her back with me, and then that's when we just started hiking all the time, and it really encouraged me to get out of the corporate world and go live on the road with her and live outdoors. And we just had so much fun. But as far as the food goes, I didn't know what to do, and there weren't any resources really.
So when you first got her, what did you think when you went to get her some food? You went to the store.
Yeah, and I thought, well, I'll get the expensive stuff.
Okay.
Because it's fancy packaging, nice words.
Right.
All this
Great
stuff.
marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, that's probably the best. It's better than the low tier, the like $2 stuff. I give her the $20 stuff.
Right.
Thinking that I'm doing her a favor, not realizing that stuff has bad stuff in it.
Right.
And I didn't know about raw food, and I didn't know about how the kibble really it feeds cancer, and ultimately that was her demise.
Do you remember which kind of kibble?
Gosh, it was a couple different ones. I remember initially it was like I Heart You or something like that. And then there was another one, and it was a weird name, and I couldn't remember it, but it was a fancy name. I thought, nice packaging, once again, fancy name, expensive.
So when you go shopping as a consumer,
yeah,
you're looking for the packaging, you're looking for the price, looking how much you can get for that price, probably. Like, what are you looking for when you think about when you used to go to the store and shop for her?
Well, and so what I looked for, honestly, was like stuff that there was stuff that was dehydrated, and I thought, great, I can carry that in bulk, because we had a small space on our truck, so I couldn't carry a lot of food, as a spot. So I would get this food, and I could rehydrate it, and it seemed like if I was thinking like, well, I'm doing the right thing by her. I didn't know, and I'd warm up water and I'd put it in the food, and she seemed to really like it. She'd snarf it down, And but then also too, I was supplementing her diet with like fresh trout because we were out fly fishing
good.
all the time.
Yeah.
So and she loved that.
Yeah.
And but I just didn't know about how that could impact her health and feed cancer. And when we got the diagnosis for cancer, I was just floored. I mean, the day before she stopped walking, one day we were up on this high mountain pass and we were fly fishing. And we went on a hike, and we went and hiked for like 5 miles at like 13,000 feet in elevation. We were way up there. And then the next day, she wouldn't get out of bed. And I thought, maybe she's got a cold or something, because she was like kind of shaking a little bit, and her nose was really running. And I thought, okay, well, something's going on with her health. And then, I took her in, and unfortunately got the bad news. So,
How old was she at that point?
she was 6.5.
Okay. So 6.5. So you had her about 5.5 years at that point.
Yep.
Okay. So,
Oh no, I'm sorry, 7.5. I 7.5. Yeah.
she was 7.5 at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that whole time that you had fed her, did you feed her the same thing every day, or were you switching it up, or besides what you caught and stuff?
Yeah, it was the same thing every day.
It was the same thing every day.
Yeah.
And she would be happy about it every day? She would want to eat it.
Yep. She was
Okay.
really, really excited for it. It seemed like she never left any food, sitting there. She always ate it all.
The good thing is you hydrated it. So, dogs biologically pull their hydration from their food.
Mm-hmm.
So when we feed them a dry food every day, that's hard on the digestive system because
Right.
it doesn't have that hydration with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good that you did that.
She was also, since we were all on all these Forest Service trails all the time, and they all led to beautiful lakes. There were streams along the trail, so she would get out. She drank water constantly because we were always. One of her favorite things to do was run through the streams, like right through the middle of it. I'm thinking, okay,
I can
you're going to
see
be
that.
all messy when we get back in the truck, but it's all good. And
Yeah.
she just had so much fun doing that, and I think that was probably what made me love the outdoors even more, was seeing how excited she got about everything. And it was just, when you see the outdoors through an animal's eyes that's stoked to be out there, it just makes it that much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's good that she got all that sun too.
Mhm.
A lot of dogs are kept in their houses.
Yeah.
So they don't get all that sun and exercise, and she got exercise and sun and food. I mean, she was,
Yeah.
and she had your companionship, so that was really good. So go fast forward then back to when you got the cancer. You took her in because she wasn't feeling good.
Right. And so we were near Fairplay, Colorado, and I took her in to the vet there, and they're great people, and they said, hey, we don't have very good imaging here, but we found a mass in her right rear. Like, it was anal sac tumor is what it was. And they said, we don't have good imaging, though. What we recommend is to go to the Wheat Ridge Animal Hospital in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, which is near Golden, so it's on the western side of Denver. And they said, they're really great there, and they can help you out. I said, okay. So I took her there, and they said, well, we're going to do MRI, and see what we can see. And we're going to keep her overnight because she was breathing real heavy, and you could tell that she was stressed. And they said, we're going to get her settled down and then come back in the morning, and we'll go over what we found. And so I came back, and she, I was sitting in a little room, and she came in and jumped down right next to me and seemed like herself again. But they gave me the bad news. They said, unfortunately, she's got it's a really aggressive tumor. It's a really aggressive style of cancer. It's in her anal sac, and it had spread to 6 lymph nodes. And then we think we saw a spot on her lungs. And I thought, oh no. And I said, well, what do we do? And they said, well, it's a really risky surgery because since it spread from the anal sac to the lymph nodes that were on the underside of her spine, those are right next to the main artery that goes through the dogs. And they said 9 times out of 10 when you do the surgery, you just accidentally, something will happen, and if you nick that artery, they bleed out. But there was a gal there, and I can't remember her name, but she was like this surgeon, this rock star surgeon. She's like, I can do that surgery. She's like, I've done it. She goes, it's only like a 10% success rate. She goes, but every single one I've done, it's been successful, and we've never had a dog bleed out. And they go, do you want to go through with this? And I immediately said yes. And it was expensive. It was $13,000, and they had to do 2 surgeries at the same time on her because they had to remove the anal sac tumor, which wasn't an issue. They said that's easy. That's easy to get to. But the ones where that was on the underside of her spine, they said that takes about 6 hours. And so they went in and did it, and when they came back out, they said, boy, there was cancer all throughout her body, but we got the majority of it except for the spot on her lungs, we know that's cancer. And they said, generally speaking, when a dog has lung cancer, they have 6 months, maybe a year. And she still lasted another 2.5 years after that. And so what I did was, as soon as I got that diagnosis, I started researching stuff, because they said, well, hey, you can do chemo and all this stuff. I thought, I'm not going to do that to a dog, And so I started researching different, like natural ways, I guess, like through nutrition and all that stuff. And I found some really great companies that had some nutraceuticals to give animals when they're fighting cancer. And then I also started researching, some stuff came online about Panicker C, which is a type of dewormer that has been proven to help destabilize cancer cell walls, to help at least slow the spread of cancer. Some cancers it cures, but with hers, I think it definitely gave her a lease on life, and helped to slow it down. But the problem was that it just started coming back, and so her other anal sac became, got tumor in it, and that's what started growing out, because the other tumor grew in, so I didn't see it. And so you could, they're like, well, this side over here, this has a lot of cancer. You couldn't see it; it was just normal, but it was in. So the other one grew out. So and you saw that, And all the doctors had said, like, after the 6 months, they're like, we cannot believe how well she's doing. And I thought, okay, well, she's got a good baseline of health, because we were always outside and she was running around and doing all those things. And I'd switched up her diet too. At that time, I didn't know about raw, but I did see online that people were like, hey, you can cook your dog meals and things like that. So I started to do that and got her off of the kibble. And then you and I met, because of coming into the store there. And I remember when I came in the first time, and you guys were like, yeah, you should do raw. And I'm thinking, I can't afford it, because I was going through some problems on the channel and stuff like that. But I wanted to, because I started looking into it, and everybody was saying, like, this is really great, because food is medicine. And I didn't realize that the food that I had given her previously had actually contributed to her her health issues. And so I felt really bad about that. I wrestled with that for a long time, because I thought, here I thought I was doing her a favor by buying her the expensive fancy food, not realizing that it was not good for her. And so that's where meeting up with you all and everything has been so great to help me learn, and the information's not out there.
It's not out there, and it's too bad it's not out there, because we could learn a lot from our doctors.
And instead their answer is do chemo. Well, I'm not going to put a dog through chemo. I'm not going I told the vet here, they're like, well, you can do chemo. I said, I'm not going to, if this is her last dance, I'm not going to make her feel worse on her way out.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. And I look at chemo as poison, and so I did notice that, before we got her on the raw diet, she was starting to go down a little bit, and starting to get more lethargic and not as active. And then as soon as we got on the raw diet, she was back up and running. I mean, running like she did at days of old, totally present, whereas she used to nap a lot, and then now she had more energy. And then it just gave her a new lease on life, for that time. And unfortunately, the cancer, I think by the time we got on the raw diet, the cancer had spread so much that it was more like managing it, as opposed to, of course I wanted a miracle, but I knew that with how much she had in her lungs, with the scans that we had done, her lungs were riddled with tumors. And then the tumor in her rear, was growing outward, and you could see it, so I was noticing, I'm like, it's getting bigger. But still, the doctors were floored. They're like, we have no idea how she's so active, and we have no idea how this cancer hasn't progressed more rapidly. And I'm thinking, well, I know. It's because of the raw diet, and also, too, like the nutraceuticals that I was giving her, and also, too, tons of love. I mean, she was with me 24/7, never left my side. There wasn't a moment in the day that I was away from her. And so I think that, I just learned so much during that about pet nutrition, and then, of course, my own nutrition, too. I'm thinking, okay, if that applies to them, it applies to us.
Right.
Just in different forms of food, but it's like everything needs to be pure. It does, you don't want the fillers. You don't want to have any of that stuff that can feed cancer, because I feel like that is the reason why she had that. I'm certain it was.
Well, high carb load foods too. Carbs break down to sugar.
Yep.
Cancer feeds off sugar.
Yep.
And so it's like eating cereal every day for us, and if we have cancer, they tell you to stay away from sugar. You have to stop eating carbs and sugar and things that feed it. But we don't talk about that with our animals. So it's the same thing if they get cancer and we're feeding them that same kibble food or high carb load food, it's the cancer's happy.
Yeah.
Because it gets to have something to eat every day.
Yep.
And spread.
Yep.
And that's a fast growing cancer.
Yep. And I at the time when she was diagnosed, I didn't know about turkey tail mushrooms that helped to stop the spread. I didn't know about all these different things. The really great quality CBD. But as once we got her on that, like I said, she just perked up, and it was like her old self again. And it was really great to have that. I mean, up until the last day. The day prior to that, she ran around the whole property with me. And then we woke up the next day, and unfortunately, the tumor had ruptured, so she was starting to bleed really bad.
Yeah.
And once that happens, I went in, and the doctor's like, she's like, I wish that there was something I could tell you. She's like, once this happens, you can't fix it because the tumor, it's ruptured, and that just tore me up.
Did you do yearly vaccinations too?
No.
No. So she didn't have vaccinations. Did she have any kind of medication?
No.
Okay, so that would lead us to do more research into where the cancer came from the food. But in a lot of these foods, we see, synthetic vitamins. And that's something I've been doing deep dives into lately because we know that, even for humans, we have a hard time absorbing those synthetics. And so for our animals, they're having a hard time too. They're finding them very... they're not absorbing them, say, the same way they would for food. So if we can give them an all-food diet that is balanced for everything they need with, and feeding a carnivore, we're feeding these animals as if they're omnivores.
Yeah.
And we're giving them, and everybody says they're not carnivores, they're omnivores. No, we're feeding them as omnivores, but they are carnivores. And we have several studies. I mean, look at their canines. And then look at the wolf. They're all descendants from the gray wolf.
Absolutely.
And they have the same digestive system. They have the same jawline. We need to feed them as carnivores. And since we're feeding them as omnivores, we're creating all these issues.
No.
Cancer's on the rise. I've been doing a lot of studies lately about the cancer and why. Because I have a lot of customers that are coming in with sick cancer dogs. So why is this happening? Because we're not talking about why. And if we could talk about why, and we can get down to some things like, say, we're going to go through, say, Sierra's life. And I sit down and I look at all of this, and I look at what food, and I look at, we went over this and how to feed her with the cancer. But I'm all about educating people so we can avoid the cancer. Can we get the cancer numbers down? Can we save more animals from having to go through this cancer? And a majority of people just don't know because pet nutrition's not a thing in the veterinarian space unless you have an integrative veterinarian or somebody who's going to go beyond, learn about the food and how to heal it. But if you're going to say most generalized veterinarians, they're not talking about food. They're talking about 3 different bags of kibble that they sell out of their clinic. And those 3 different bags, not only did it contribute to the disease you're going in there for, but it's now feeding it faster. So talk about diabetes and stuff, those things as well. And it's creating bigger problems. And then on top of that, in order to treat it, they give them that. And so these are things that we've been talking about. These are things that we're trying to get the word out. Pet nutritionists are talking to people about food, and fresh food, real food. And it's no different than us humans when we're talking about, going to McDonald's every day. What nutrition are you getting out of McDonald's? If you were to eat cereal for every meal of every day, that's what we do to our dogs with a kibble food. Every day we feed them the same food. We don't even switch it. So first of all, how boring is that? Second of all,
imagine that. Every day you got to eat cardboard.
Every day, yeah. And then it's creating problems on top of that.
Yeah. Well, another thing I noticed too is like everybody gets online and they'll look up stuff. Well, everything that comes up in the search result is paid search results.
Absolutely.
So it was like Purina Pro Science or whatever, and I'm just thinking
Pill
like
Science Diet.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I'm not going to feed them that, but those are the things that come up.
Yeah.
And then if you do like pet food studies, well, all those studies are funded by those people.
Absolutely.
And then of course it's gonna, if they're funding it, it's going to be a favorable skewed thing in their direction to say like, buy more of our stuff. And it was just really hard to find anybody or any sites or anything like that was a real resource as opposed to a marketing pitch.
Right.
That's what it was.
Right.
Let's buy our
I
stuff.
think if we could teach people too how to read ingredient labels. So if somebody say that I hear a lot, I can't afford raw food. So what I like to tell people is if, a lot of people think they can't afford raw food and then we educate them on how to feed it. And raw is scary for some reason to all these people. I look at it as, because all these years, say for the last 100 years that we've been feeding kibble food, they've wanted us to be scared to feed our animals fresh, real food.
Yeah.
Take that for what it is, or why they do that. I have my beliefs.
I do too.
If we have sick dogs, we're not going to the doctor.
Yeah.
But aside from all that, we do have sick dogs. So why do we have sick dogs? And if these are the only 3 brands of food that we're ever going to recommend out of our doctor's office, and those 3 foods aren't working. Our dogs are chronically dehydrated. Our dogs are sick. I lost mine to medication. But same thing out of the vet clinic. It was feed only these 3 options. Well, she had horrible reactions to all those foods. So then it's like, well, okay, you recommended this. I tried that. I tried this. Nothing worked. So at that point, they're out of answers because they only teach or recommend those 3 foods. Those 3 foods are high heat processed kibble food with a lot of low grade, feed grade fillers that don't feed nutrition to the body. Dogs have an amino acid profile that needs to be met daily. They can't synthesize those amino acids on their own, so we have to feed that to them. If we're feeding them a kibble that's a dried up kibble that has no amino acids in it at all, and a lot of them have those synthetics that are just, most kibble food is going to have synthetics. So now we're nutrient deficient because we can't absorb the vitamins in there. And they do that because after the high heat kibble process, there's very little nutrients left. So in order to meet the nutrient minimum guideline for food, they have to spray it with the synthetics. But really, at the end of the day, all we're feeding them is a bunch of cereal.
Yeah, and just the things that feed the diseases that we're trying to, or hoping that they don't get.
And they have to be full of carbohydrates. So, in order to make a kibble and go through the extrusion process, it has to have a high carb load. So you're feeding anywhere from 30 to 70% carbohydrates in every meal. And here's what gets me is dogs don't even use carbohydrates. Most dogs are couch potatoes, right? They don't get to live like you. So they're on their couch and they're not doing anything. They're not burning anything. They're not needing anything for energy because they're not even doing anything. Now there's a lot of people who walk their dogs. That's great. You cannot walk your dog enough to burn the carbohydrates that you have just fed them. And not only that, they don't use carbohydrates. They use fat for fuel. So if we're not feeding them enough, fat, we don't have we're not meeting the fatty acid profile, we're not meeting the amino acid profile. There's a lot of things we're not doing for them. And then on top of that, we're asking their body to digest a food that they biologically don't use. So again, let's go back to cereal. I like to compare to donuts,
which are awesome, by the way.
Which we can, we can eat.
Yeah,
right?
But just in small doses.
But do we eat it every day for every meal for our entire life? And there's people who feed their dogs every day, same food, and they tell me it's expensive, so it's a good food.
Yeah.
So this is the mindset that we need to kind of change, and we're going to have to go backwards. I mean, before we had kibble food, our dogs ate real food, whether it be table scraps like we used to do. That parents would take what they're going to make for dinner and they'll chop a little bit up and they shove it off to the side, and that's for the dog. Come home from the restaurant, remember doggy bags? They came home with doggy bags. Yes. And they would feed their dogs food. Now we're feeding our dogs cardboard, like you said. Very low nutrients, very low. The dehydration causes a lot of problems that we go to the vet for. Now, when you go to the doctor, yes, the dog is sick. And yes, a lot of times they need to rehydrate them. So you need to be at the vet because you need them to rehydrate you with the IVs and stuff. They're so chronically dehydrated, and it's from the food. And then I have people tell me all the time, well, my dog drinks all the time. He's dehydrated. Biologically, dogs do not go, look at the wolf. In the wild, does he have a bowl? I mean, yeah, they'll have creeks and lakes and, they'll go and drink. But when they're out eating and they're eating what they're supposed to eat, say they kill a deer, the first thing they go for is the organ meat. Then they're going to eat the stomach and the stomach contents. The stomach, by the way, lining is tripe. So we talked about that today. Very, very good for them. All their nutrients. The wolf knows what it needs and it knows what to eat. And that's what it eats. So what I like to say about raw food that everybody's so afraid of, is we are just bringing that to the bowl for our dogs because we're not letting them out hunt like the wolf.
Yeah.
So we're creating these meals of, muscle meat, organ meat, bones. They need bones for calcium. They also need to chew on bones for teeth cleaning. Those are the first 3 ingredients we should always feed them. And, different proteins, some people say, well, my dog's allergic to everything. Well, let's go through that and let's go and change the different proteins from a raw food, not a kibble food. Raw and kibble are different, So there's a lot of things that we can do to change the mindset first, because we have to change our human mindset. Because our first thing is you get a dog, you go buy dog food. As long as it says dog food on the bag,
Yeah,
right?
You think you're doing a solid.
You think you're doing a good thing,
Yeah.
right? And that's because that's what they've wanted us to believe for the last 80 years, 100 to 80 to 100 years. They've wanted us to believe that.
Well, and like as humans, especially now, we talk about the corporatization of our food, but the same things happen to dogs and also cats, and animals in general. You get these big corporations that kind of corner the market, and then what's interesting is, like, I have had some people on my channel be like, you shouldn't be feeding your dog raw. You need to get a high grade kibble. I'm thinking, you've just been told the wrong things.
Yeah.
You've been led to believe the lies because they want to make money off of you, and unfortunately, it's killing your pet.
They have great marketing teams, right? Everything's so colorful and looks so pretty, and the dogs don't care what it looks like, but they're also putting a lot of, the color and the preservatives and things in that to make it look pretty, but really that's harmful to the dog's gut. And what are we feeding them for? We're feeding them for gut health. Is that her?
Let me go grab her.
You need to
quick.
get her.
Yeah, let me go grab her.
Yes! Oh my goodness!
She's so excited. Oh, little fucking come here.
Hi! Oh, look at the tail!
Look at her.
Look at, oh,
She
the baby!
smells so good.
Oh, the baby! Oh, I know! Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I know. Oh, okay.
All right, come here, sweetie.
Oh, she's coming to me now.
okay.
Sorry.
I thought she was trying to bite you or something.
Oh, no. Oh, the kisses. Oh, just the kisses.
She looks like a little bear with how fluffy she is
She
and
does.
stuff. What do you think, sweetie? And so I'm so thankful that we're starting her off on the right path.
Yes.
With all raw and just everything that she needs in order to, like, just avoid those health issues. Because, you think about it, and it's like, oh, okay, I don't have the mindset that I had. Well, I don't have the money for that really expensive stuff. Well, then a $13,000 surgery comes along.
So that's what I was going to say too. They always say they can't afford it, but they drop of a hat will drop 10 grand for an illness or a surgery or something to fix them.
Yeah.
When really, if we invest in them from the day that they're born, like these guys, and feed them properly what their body needs and uses, then you don't see those ailments that you see typically. Now, we have to have surgeries, and they may break something, and we need our doctors. We do.
Yeah.
But I just wish that they were better trained or have more knowledge in nutrition so they can help, because everybody goes to the doctor, to the vet,
Yeah.
when they get sick.
Yeah.
But a lot of these ailments could be healed from food because they're caused from food. That's where they come from.
She's so happy. She's like, I feel so good. Look at her tail. She's just whipping my chest.
She put her tongue in my mouth.
Did
She
she?
put the tongue in my mouth. Yes, she did. Mwah.
She says, I love you guys.
Oh, you're so soft now. Yes, you are. I wonder if you'll let me do a selfie.
And then also, talking about, you told me about that one dog that lived, was it 31 years?
31 years. Yeah.
And nowadays, you hear like, oh, they only last 10 years, they only last 5 years, or something like that. And you think like, okay, so like I'm really excited with her. We're starting her off on the right track. She's always going to be on the right track. How long is her life going to be?
Right.
And the quality of life too. That's the big thing too, is the quality of life. She's not going to have these health issues. She's not going to have an upset stomach, or any digestive problems or anything like that. And you can tell by the way she's acting. Seriously, when I adopted her just a week and a half ago, she was so skinny. And now you can't feel the ribs like you could. What are you doing? Oh, I know you're just such a happy girl. You're just a happy.
I'm so silly. I love those baby teeth.
Yeah.
Yes, I love the baby teeth. Yes, baby teeth. Oh, lots of
my
kisses.
goodness.
What, you got the sharp nails too? Yes, you do.
Yeah, I
You
got the sharp
nails. Yes, you do. The kisses. Oh, I love the kisses.
Those pictures that y'all got.
Oh my God, they're so
yeah,
cute. They're
they're
so
just
cute.
amazing.
She doesn't want you, Brian. She
Yeah.
wants me. Sorry, you're gonna have to wait. Huh? Yes, I know other loves. I'm so glad you're not mad at me for that bath. You smell so much better.
And you know,
Yes, you do.
she has the same markings on her face as Sierra, like the eye makeup.
She does.
You know?
And you know when I see it on your videos, there's sometimes I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah,
she's
it's like them.
Sierra.
I get so
Yes.
many comments about that.
Yes, it's
So-
true.
Uh-oh.
Did you get rid of the earring?
Yep, there.
Got it.
Oh, you got it good. She's
She
a
doesn't
handful.
care.
She's
I got
like,
a handful.
puppy energy. Puppy energy.
I love the baby cheese. Yes, I got him. Huh? And yeah, her teeth aren't going to be always this sharp.
I know that she can get you a little bit.
Yeah,
There's a
she's
couple
got
times
me
she's
a few
got me. She got me on my
times,
ear the other day. I'm like, don't pierce the ears, you know. Like,
Right. But yeah, so that's another important factor, and weight. Diabetes in dogs.
Yeah.
It's a bad problem.
It's sad. You go to a dog park and you see and you're like, wow, there's so many overweight dogs.
Yeah. Kibble, carb loads,
Yeah.
high. They're not able to use the carbohydrates that we feed them. So it's really important when you feed the raw diets, or I like to call them fresh food diets. They supply that everything that those dogs need when we get it with the right balance, of course. But it's going to give them their hydration. It gives them their omegas. It gives them the balance that they need, just like a wolf in the wild. And the wolf is going to go get different prey. He's going to eat the deer. He's going to eat the rabbit. He's going to eat, they all get different benefits from different proteins. So when we switch it up for her and we rotate all of that, and then going back to Sierra, when we were treating her cancer, we were starving the cancer. When she was on a kibble food, it was feeding the cancer.
Yep.
So there's, that's the number one thing that needs to happen. It should happen from day one.
Yeah.
But if we don't know,
Yeah, and
when
like
we
I said,
don't
there's no
know,
resources really.
right? There's not a lot of talk about. There are a lot of studies going on now. So I see things changing.
Well, and I've noticed too that on social media, I'm seeing more and more ads for raw. More people are saying, "Hey, get your dogs off the kibble. Get them the real food."
Yep. Because the studies are coming out now that people are paying attention to. It is hard to beat the big corporations that are running those tests, like we talked about earlier. Those studies that are funded by the big corporations. But now they're starting to do more and more because people understand it, and it makes sense. If anybody's self-conscious or health conscious, I should say, about themselves, apply it to your dogs. Because it makes sense. It makes the same, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We shouldn't eat a lot of carbohydrates either. She's like, what's over?
Yeah,
I'm
she's
gonna
like,
go get it.
I hear animals.
I hear something. I'm gonna go get it. So that's the biggest thing, is just to think about eating cereal every day, or eating fresh steak. Your vegetables, I'd say potatoes, but they don't need potatoes. Everybody likes to have a good steak and potato. Well, eat the carbs if you're going to burn them.
Right.
But these guys aren't going to. So, your steak, vegetables, but your meat, organs, and bones are the first 3 ingredients they should always have in their meal.
Yeah.
Then they eat a little bit of vegetable for vitamins and stuff. So,
Look at
yeah,
this
that's
tail.
why it's so important.
This little tail's gonna go crazy. I know. It's nonstop, but it's nonstop moving. Did you guys see? She's like, I just want to look over there.
Oh, thank you. Oh, more. Ow! It just scratched my face.
Did she?
Yeah. You
You
scratched
little
the
stinker.
face.
You little stinker.
You did. You scratched your face.
I can't wait to get her out on trails and stuff. She's gonna have so much fun.
Look at your face. Scratch the face.
Well, I just can't thank you enough for, in Sierra's last, I would say, year, she did great. And like I said, the doctors would be like, we've never seen a dog last this long with this type of cancer. They usually check out within 6 months, and then she lasted 2.5 years, and they were good years. It wasn't like she was struggling. I mean, she'd get up in the morning, wanted to go on a walk. We did 3 walks a day around the property, and then the rest of the time I'd just be working on stuff on the property, and she'd always be with me, sleeping underneath trees or whatever.
She always had energy too. Like she always wanted to run, play, but you could tell, like when it was enough, she would have to lay down and rest.
Yeah.
But otherwise, well, not like this one.
I
That'll
know.
go nonstop.
No, trust me. I'm tired.
These puppies, man. That's lots of puppy energy.
Yep.
But what you did do is help starve the cancer. We couldn't beat it, but you helped starve it, and that's what gave you and her, more adventures together until it was her time.
I'm very thankful.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the knowledge because, like I said, it's just hard to find that information. So that's where I think that you sharing this information and you being a resource for those of us that want to make sure that our animals live their best lives, it's important.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say thank you.